Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the Kai Paul podcast. I'm so excited to have our guest with us, Dan Peters from the Remax Rocky View real estate team, the Peters team. It's so cool to have you on the show with us today.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. It's good. Good friend Kai, I'm so glad that you invited me, and I'm looking forward to just spending a little time together.
Absolutely. So Dan is a very successful realtor in Alberta, Canada, and he has inspired me very often. We built a friendship over the years. But Dan, something that I've always noticed and kind of admired about you and love the backstory is the fact that you are wearing an NHL jersey. And in all your advertising, as you can see, if you look in the shot behind me, in all your advertising, you are wearing with your team an NHL jersey. Tell me the story of how that happened.
Many years ago, I'm going to say probably about 20 or so years ago, when we would attend Remax of Western Canada conferences, different real estate agents from Remax all over Western Canada would meet on an annual conference. And we started wearing our jerseys there just to identify where we're from. So, Flames jersey must be from Calgary. So that just identified us. We're not Winnipeg Realtors. We're not Saskatoon Realtors. We are from Flames country, and this is where we service. And so it just kind of evolved out of that, and just started to use that in some of our advertising as well.
That's awesome. And as far as I'm aware, you actually consulted with the Calgary Flame NHL team, and you have permission to use their jerseys.
That is correct. We did that.
That's
and,
so cool.
Yeah, got the nod. Go ahead. So.
Absolutely. Every time I'm driving down the road and I see like a house for sale and I see the Calgary Flame jerseys, it's like, I know who that is.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, the reason I brought you on the podcast today is because the Kai Paul podcast is about people that want more in life, want to be successful in life at any age or any stage. But the reason I brought such a seasoned veteran in the real estate world onto the show is because I wanted to talk about beginner home buyers, first-time home buyers, people that are wanting to get into the real estate game. You know, there's a lot of questions and a lot of nostalgia around kind of the housing market. Everyone has a different opinion. Everyone's parents have a different opinion. Rent, get a mortgage, don't get a mortgage, pay off your mortgage faster, never buy a home, you know? And so you're a person that is very experienced in this field. And I know there's a lot of younger and middle-aged people that are thinking about buying their first home. And so I wanted to bring you onto the show to talk about that. And I'd love to hear kind of your advice and your thoughts of, should people buy their first home?
Absolutely. There is never a wrong time to own. And being a homeowner is just one of, we in Canada here, in many parts of Canada, we, along with not just owning your own home, you get to invest in yourself in terms of building equity, because over the course of time, values of property have gone up, and it's a great way for people to put equity into their own lives and to create wealth. Along with having a place to live that you call your own, that a landlord isn't calling the shots and dictating, dictating kind of how much rent you're going to you're going to be having to pay, and you get to chart your own course more.
I love it. Okay, so you heard it, folks. There's never a bad time to own. Right. So I think that's really cool. That's kind of was my belief, but I'm glad to hear that that you feel the same way. So imagine now you have a young couple or maybe a single individual in their early or mid 20s, maybe a little bit older, and they're thinking about buying their first home. What would be some advice you would give to them? What to look for? What would be like some tips and tricks? Because I know I have friends that have gotten burnt buying their first home, either because of the agent, either because it was a bad deal. And so I just love to hear some advice from you.
Sure. Well, of course, connecting with a great agent who's going to give you good advice and knows what they're doing is, of course, paramount, because it's more than just drywall and paint and a foundation that you're getting into. There's a lot of different aspects to the actual purchasing of a home and owning a home as well. So being well educated is something that is extremely important. Yes, a seasoned agent can be a great asset, but everybody has to start in this business somewhere. And I sold my first home when I got licensed in 1994, and so somebody took a chance on me. But I think key to that is that those, if they are newer agents, that they have mentors that they are actively working with and have access to that can guide the process through until they become seasoned themselves. And so as a first-time home buyer, yes, we've got parents, grandparents, family members, friends.
Yeah.
Everybody has their opinions as to what they what you should or shouldn't do, and
sometimes those opinions can be very strong.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yes, especially parental,
Yeah.
and especially if mom and dad are maybe helping with the down payment. So what mom and dad want the kids to have isn't necessarily what the kids want to have. Those kinds of things. So. And so it's getting the best advice properly, and having with an agent that has an arsenal of good people, all kinds of other professionals that are crucial in the purchase of a home, like a mortgage broker, like a home inspector, like lawyers, like condominium documents review people, if a condominium is something that you're purchasing, those kinds of things. So just having access and having a good team to make the whole process go as smoothly as possible. It's an education process for buyers. It's very scary.
Yeah.
For many people, it's the largest investment they will ever make, so it can be very daunting. And so having professionals to guide you through all the way through, and especially if it is your first time, then it's ultimately very important that you have somebody that knows what they're doing.
That's amazing. Wow, a wealth of information. I love how on the Kai Paul podcast, everything ties together. So if we go back, if you listen to episode 1, if you haven't, I highly advise you to go back and listen to episode 1, because episode 1 was actually about mentorship. And I was talking about the importance of having mentors in our lives. And so I loved how you mentioned, hey, everyone needs a chance, right? And so if you have a young agent that is just getting into the game, and you're like, oh, maybe they've never listed a house, or they've only listed a few houses, the important thing for new home buyers would be, say, who is mentoring them? Who are they learning from? Who's guiding them through the process? That's really good advice. And just having that seasoned professional or someone that is getting good counsel to advise new household owners what to buy.
Yeah, there are some brokerages that are very active in mentoring their new agents. Other brokerages, their business models are more like, you're licensed, fly on your own.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to, if you don't know the agent, maybe interview an agent. If you don't have any that have been recommended to you. But recommendations of agents from family and friends where they've had really good positive experiences is also a good thing. But so many times, your best bud just got his license. Well, he hasn't, and so you want to, he's your friend, right? You want to do all of this, right? Well, certainly, anticipate that your friend would have an arsenal of people mentoring and getting involved and making sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed on all these contracts, and that in the end you have an enforceable contract that isn't going to go off the rails on possession date or before that. So
exactly. That's very cool. Okay, so I'm super curious. I know part of the story, and I'm sure the viewers would love to hear the story as well, but how did you get into real estate? Because I know you didn't start there.
No, I did a number of different, had a number of different jobs, career choices, et cetera, et cetera. And prior to that, I didn't become a real estate agent until my mid-30s. But I was in the restaurant business. Okay. And
wow, from the restaurants to the real estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had wanted to be a real estate agent for a long time. Actually,
no way.
Yeah, on Sunday afternoons, I'd go to open houses, and I'd go not to necessarily just to look at the house, but just go like, oh man, I'd love to do what you're doing. And
that's awesome.
And so then we owned this little restaurant in a little town called Didsbury, Alberta. And so the local Remax manager would come into the restaurant for lunch, and got to know her and chatting and on and on and on. And I had just expressed to her that, I would love to be a real estate agent. And she said, Dan, you should do this. She says, I think you would be really good at it. So she recruited me. And
she actually recruited you?
Yes,
okay.
She did. Yeah. And that's how I started. My first sale was selling the restaurant.
Wait. Your first sale was selling the restaurant that you owned?
Well, because I had to sell it to get into the business.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So,
Wow.
because I was going to jump in, I was not going to do this part-time.
No,
I was going
you're
to go full-time. I'm going to
feet
do this.
first, yeah.
Right. And so the proceeds that we made from the sale of the restaurant is what I used to fund our life. We had 2 children.
Yeah.
So you still had to pay the bills.
Of course.
And so this, we owned our house. This agent had sold us our house.
Okay.
I had sold that. And then in the fall of 1993 is when I took my real estate agent's course. And January 1 of 1994 is when I started selling real estate.
Wow.
And then in 95, got my broker's license. And shortly after that.
Wow, it's been 20 years. No, wait.
32.
32. Okay,
I'm in my 32nd year.
95, yeah, 32nd. Okay.
Yeah, and shortly after that, I got my diploma in real estate from the University of Alberta. And so, I've been doing it full time ever since, selling real estate. I owned a real estate brokerage, a Remax brokerage, for a while, but sold that shortly before my daughter. Youngest daughter wanted to get into the business as well.
No way.
And so in 2007, Shay, our youngest daughter, joined me selling real estate. And then in 2022, her husband, Dave, joined us. So there's the 3 of us now working together as a team. And I've had the joy of training, mentoring, and developing a team that I'm very proud of. And so that's kind of the story of it.
I love it. Okay, we got to go back to the restaurant because on the Kai Paul podcast, we love stories, and that restaurant has a good story because you not only own that restaurant, ran that restaurant, sold that restaurant,
Right.
but I know that you have proceeded to sell that restaurant multiple times. So tell us a little bit more about that. That's been a moneymaker for you.
Right. I think I made as much money on that restaurant as an agent as I did as the owner of the restaurant. But the restaurant business is something that a lot of people. It was a quaint little coffee shop, deli, soup and sandwich place, so a lot of people just come in and go like, oh, it would be so nice to have this little restaurant. I can just bake cookies and cakes and, make a few sandwiches and pour coffee and, make tea and all this kind of stuff. And it would, it's just grandma and apple pie kind of thing, it would be so much fun. And, a lot of people dream of doing that because maybe they love to cook. Maybe they love to, maybe they just love to socialize with people.
Yeah.
I actually don't even like to cook. And no, I don't. I just as soon never cook anything in my life. So they buy a restaurant and then they find out how much work it really is. And so I ended up selling the restaurant 4 times after
I
originally sold it. Yes, it just, people was like, okay, we had no idea this was going to be this much work. Our family members that were going all gung-ho to help us and all this, they've jumped ship. They don't want to do this anymore, and so.
And you're just like, this is time number 4. Cha-ching,
exactly.
cha-ching.
Yeah. And eventually the restaurant did fail and close.
Okay.
I'm not. That's many years ago already.
Yeah.
But
So, what an awesome story.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, cool. So thank you so much for sharing. You got into real estate. You started as a restaurant owner. You sold that restaurant 5 times heads.
Right.
And so yeah, okay. That was a great story. But jumping back on to kind of the concept of buying your first home and stuff. So what would you say, there's a number of programs that are available, 5% down, first time home buyer, rent to own. There's so many different options. And I know when I was buying my first house, I kind of got bombarded with a million different choices and routes and avenues and how you could go about that. What would your recommendation, what have you seen as the most streamlined process, has worked the best for new time home buyers?
Well, we have here in Canada and Alberta, we do, for your principal residence, you do have the benefit of being able to buy with 5% down, right? And that doesn't necessarily just for your first home, as long as it's your principal home, right, that you're going to live in. You can.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Not just your first. It's as long as it's
if you own more than one house, you're going to have at least 20% down for conventional financing. Okay. For at least one of the for one of the homes.
Yeah.
But yes, I sell houses to people that are in their 50s and 60s, and it's their, who knows how many homes they've owned, but it's their principal residence, and some of them buy with 5% down.
That's amazing. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. So not recommended, at that age. but the reality is, for most people, unless they come into money, through an inheritance or something like that, their first home, yes, is going to come in at a 5% down rate. One of the real keys to having a successful first-time buying experience is having a great mortgage agent on your side, working together with a great mortgage agent who can advise in the process. It's somebody that is involved in the process long prior to you actually negotiating a transaction, giving you good advice, looking at your financial situation, and advising you as to, okay, here's a few things that should maybe look at tweaking prior to making an application for a mortgage. Things like advising you to have great documentation for any transactions that you're doing, movement of money. If there's any cash coming in, a good documentation that is, okay, where did that cash come from? Why was it in cash? Those kinds of things. Mysterious money coming in, those kinds of things. $10,000 all of a sudden just arrives in your account. Well, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Okay. And so those kinds of things, making sure that you've got a boss, if you're employed, that will give you an employment letter, that is a good employment letter that that the lenders will need. Those kinds of things. Stability. Don't be changing jobs. And overcoming some of what can sometimes be perceived by lenders as negatives. People who work seasonal jobs. People who get laid off. Spring breakup, working in the oil patch, those kinds of things. People who have jobs where their base salary isn't that great, but they make good bonuses, but those bonuses aren't necessarily steady and guaranteed. So overcoming all of that and then having that mortgage agent line you up with the best lender for your situation.
Okay.
I'm a strong proponent of having a mortgage broker as opposed to you going to the bank and just dealing directly with the bank's employee that deals in mortgages. A mortgage broker is there to work for you. The bank's employee is there to work for the bank.
Okay.
The mortgage agent is to do what's in your best interest. They're obligated to do that. It's fiduciary responsibilities is what it's called. The person that's working at the bank, they're doing what's in the bank's best interest. That's what they're getting paid to do.
Yes.
And so to have somebody on your side that can not just put a mortgage together, but also advise you okay, if you do this, do that, do this, do that, pay off this bill first, let's get that out of the way. And some of those things will just even get you not just a better credit score, but then also you can get an A-line lender as opposed to a B-line with a higher credit or with a higher line.
Okay. For the beginners, so what's an A line and what's an E line?
So people with great credit, they've got all kinds of. A mortgage agent will then, okay, Kai, you're buying your first house, and she put she's got all the information that you need, right? Kai, you've got a great credit score. You've got good history here. There's a lot
thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that.
There's a lot of lenders that are going to jump. Okay. Oh yeah, they're going to want you, right? And so then your mortgage agent is going to be able to negotiate the best possible deal.
Okay.
Well, Kai, you're self-employed and, your business is kind of seasonal. And I see, looking at your history, your cash flow in is like really low for periods of time. And then it's all of a sudden.
It's been a hard season, Dad.
Exactly. Kind of sporadic, on and on and on.
Yeah.
You might end up not getting those A lenders. Okay. And have to go okay, got to go to somebody who they'll take a chance on you. Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit higher risk, maybe a little bit higher interest rate. Okay. And so if a mortgage agent can advise you in terms of how to move yourself up the ranks a little bit, and a real estate agent as well.
Yes.
But I tend not to jump into people's finances in terms of helping with those kinds of things. I have great mortgage agents that I work with, mortgage brokers that I work with, and they're the professionals to do what they do.
Yeah.
And I'm the professional to do what I do.
I love
and working together as a team. I don't pretend to be a financial expert, guiding people through the process of becoming well qualified for a mortgage.
So I think that's something that our viewers should take note of. If your agent is trying to give you a ton of financial advice, maybe that should be a little bit of a red flag, because you should let each professional do what they're best at.
You may have an agent that is very well versed.
Okay.
There are some agents that are mortgage brokers as well.
Oh, wow. They're both.
Okay. Yeah, they are both. I'm not. I choose not to be. I choose to be focused.
Yeah.
Type A personality. one thing at a time. Just making sure that, that you've got, for things that you don't do. I'm also not a home inspector.
Okay.
Right. I don't pretend to be a home inspector. I know a lot about houses and construction and those kinds of things, but I don't go and advise here. No, you get a professional to come in, look at this. So having that in place. So a good mortgage broker, in the process of you getting what we call pre-qualified, will be able to advise you to make sure that you are able to, when you do make an offer on a property that is accepted and you want to get the financing, that you've got a strong, solid pre-qualification in place, and having maybe been able to, maybe through that process, been able to strengthen your pre-qualification.
I love it. Okay, so for people that are looking, because there's people that maybe they're just getting into the game now, maybe there's they've been bombarded with information, and people are learning. They're learning as they're listening. So I'm learning as I'm listening to this podcast, as I'm listening to you right now. How should people go about finding a mortgage agent? How would you do that? How would you recommend people do that?
Most mortgage agents would be recommended by the real estate agent.
Okay.
They obviously do their marketing as well, so like real estate agents, many friends, family, have also dealt with mortgage agents as well.
Okay.
The older generation, myself and older, generally would recommend, well, you just go to the bank that you've dealt with, right? And so it's more because the mortgage agents, that whole kind of service is something that has evolved in the last generation. So 50, 60 years ago, there were mortgage agents. It was just the guy at the bank. Right. The loans officer at the bank.
Yeah.
And so, you may have friends and family that have dealt with someone. Your real estate agent certainly should have some folks, mortgage agents that he or she has dealt with a lot.
Wow.
And so I have some that are on my list.
Yeah.
That's here are the people that are not going to do you wrong. These are people that are doing this full time and know what they're doing. There's so much information and so much that a person needs to know, and the process is complex of purchasing a home, and especially your first home when you're not seasoned, you've not done this before. It's quite complex, and so I feel that it is very important that the people that you have working for you, be the real estate agent, be it the mortgage broker, those kinds of people, are people that are in it full time, that have their head in the game, not doing it as a side hustle, as a hobby, that are really not invested in the industry. There's just so many factors involved in the purchasing of a home, that it's a decision that needs to be made with the best possible advice that you can get. You're not just buying a home, you're buying into a neighborhood. You're buying into, what's going to be happening. down the street? What's going to be happening with what is happening with this neighborhood? What changes are being made?
Yeah.
Rural properties. Oh, there's a big power line going in. It's going to be all almost on top of my house. Oh, well, does the agent know that?
Depreciation all of a sudden, right?
Oh, exactly. And so just a lot of things. So having people that have their head in the game of what they're doing, mortgage brokers that are doing this on a full-time regular basis, that have access to the best mortgage lending markets that they can get, home inspectors that are doing it and are doing it full time, so that they didn't just take a course and I do the odd home inspection. Well, it's improperly
if cracks done in your foundation, right? Like
exactly, right. And so yes, these kinds of things cost money, but they're a great, and they're just one of those necessary things you got to spend.
Absolutely.
You got to get somebody that knows what they're doing.
100%. Yeah. So I have a question. I've just kind of been burning to ask you this question. So say, for instance, we have people that are going to buy their first home, or potentially maybe their second home, and they're still pretty new to real estate. They don't know a lot about the process. What are some red flags, some warnings, that people can keep their eye out to say, if you see that, that's probably not a good idea when investing in a property?
Well, physical aspects of a home can certainly, there can be a lot of red flags. I can walk into a house, not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean don't buy this house, but be aware of what it is that you're buying. Is this home of an age where the house might have aluminum wiring? Does this house have poly B plumbing? Certain age range of houses where they had that, and some of those kinds of things that then become a potential problem in trying to get good homeowners insurance for the property. Looking around the neighborhood of being familiar with the neighborhood. Is this a neighborhood that's improving in value? Is this a neighborhood that's just, am I going to be the only house left here because the neighborhood is being redeveloped? Buying into a zoning and a home in a zoning in an area that is zoned for, say, apartment buildings as well. Well, you could be living in the shade of a large apartment building and never see the sun again properly from your house.
Wow, zoning. I never
If
thought
the
of
house,
zoning,
if the property next door becomes an apartment building, right, where you've got all kinds of balconies now looking down into your backyard. All these kinds of things can all have an impact. How close are you to major roadways, noise, those kinds of things.
Okay, you just said noise. That reminds me of a story. Remember we were having lunch one day and you told me about a property that someone bought and it was right next to a train line?
Yes.
But every time they were there, they never saw it. Could you tell that story?
So in a little town years ago, and an agent from the city came and showed a property in the evening. It was wintertime, and showed this property, and they looked out back and there was a fence. And behind that was a pasture, like just horses grazing in a pasture. But right behind the fence was a train track. And so But
they didn't see the train track.
They didn't see the train track. And while they were at the house, no train came through. And so bought the house. And the day after they took possession, I was in my office, and my assistant said to me, Dan, there's somebody just come into the office and they don't look happy. And this buyer of this house was absolutely furious, threatened to sue me and the whole bit, because nobody had told her that there was a train track right behind the house. And I guess they had
what happened during the night? You got
her family had moved her, and so at night, and she was in Calgary cleaning up her house, and by the time she got here, they had her bed set up, and so she just kind of came home, came into her new house, flopped into bed and went to sleep. And then at 3:30 or something like that, when the train came through, I guess it just startled her to the point, and it just scared the daylights out of her. She thought the world was going to end, was ending, or
the house is shaking like I hear trumpets.
Yeah. And so she was just
So good.
absolutely furious, right, that this had not been disclosed to her.
Yeah.
I said, well, it's actually your agent
Yeah.
that should have disclosed that to you. Well, she's from Calgary. How would she know? Well, that's the problem that we already addressed. As an agent, do you know the area that you're working in?
Wow.
Right? That train track that is there, right? And there's only between 300 and 350 trains a month that go through this track. So like, get used to it. And I'm thinking like, and I'm telling her, this lady, you know, you need to talk to your agent. You know, she's the one. And then I thought, well, what could I say that might just, you know, calm this person down a bit? And I said, well, you know what? Actually, people say they do get used to it. And that just riled her up even more. She's like, there is no way you could ever get used to this. So anyway, she ended up living in the house. And a couple of years later, I'm in my office again. And my secretary said, that lady is back.
How did you feel at that moment?
And I was like, oh no, right? And so she came in and she said, you're right. You know, it was not my fault. It was her agent at the time that should have disclosed it. And she says, and you know what? You do get used to it, right? But circumstances had changed in her life.
Okay.
And she needed to move back to Calgary to be closer to her family. And she says, I'm coming here to talk to you about listing my house.
No way.
And she listed her house with me.
With you?
With me.
No. Wow.
And she said, and you make sure you tell people.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So
but what an amazing situation from someone that came in, you know, piping steam out of their ears, just saying, I'm going to sue you to, will you list my house? What a story.
Well, and ultimately, sadly was done wrong by an agent that, was not
educated and chose to sell in an area they weren't familiar with.
That they had no idea. Beautiful. Hey, look, pasture horses, peaceful. Yeah, right. Till the train comes through, right? And so that's just one of the important things as well. I do have friends that sometimes go, well, we're thinking of buying here. Can you just come out here and we're gonna? Well, it's an area that I don't work, so like, you know what? No, I'd rather refer you to someone that works in that area that is reputable. So, over the years of referring business back, clients back and forth to different agents, I've always made a point of making sure that I've got good agents in different areas that I can refer people to, and have a professional that is local, that knows that market, right? That knows that doesn't have you overpaying. This house may seem like a great deal. Well, yes, it is a great price for that kind of a house, but you're still paying too much because of the neighborhood that it's in, right? So it's, like I said, there's just so many different factors, making sure you really don't want to have the most expensive house in a neighborhood, but you don't want to have, you don't necessarily want to overpay for a neighborhood, right? Wow. And so you have to be careful that the neighborhood can support the kind of a price point that house. And so that house along the tracks was it was a good price. It was good, good house, all this kind of stuff. Well, that I think I got, a great deal till the train comes through. Right. Okay. And so it could be a train. It could be aircraft overhead. Wow, it could just different things, of something that is planned for to come through the neighborhood. Right. We've got neighborhoods in Calgary right now, Green Line being planned, all these kinds of things. Well, it's great to live close to, what in Calgary they call the C train, so public transportation, right? But do you want to live near a station like that where you've got questionable activity in people, a lot of higher crime, those kinds of things because of people loitering and reality. So just knowing knowing those kinds of things. And so having an agent that can advise you correctly.
That's amazing.
Those kinds of things.
So good, Dan. This has been so good. I know that the time is flying so fast for over half an hour already, which is crazy. But so I really love that, red flags when it comes to a property, like look at the zoning, look at noise factors, look at the community, look at potential future projects that could impact the value of your home. It's amazing. So I do have another question. And as you were kind of talking, it's like, oh, I got to ask this one. What about the buying process? What could be some red flags in the buying process when dealing with an agent, when dealing with a mortgage, with dealing with the homeowners, the current homeowners? What would be some red flags or some things that might caution you for people to take a step back?
Most times the buyer does not actually meet the sellers, right? Okay. So a buyer meets with their buyer's agent, and the seller works with the seller's agent. But as agents, we have to, when representing our clients, we also have to know what kind of questions to ask, right? And so when I ask certain questions, and I don't get straight answers, okay, so the Spideys go up, right? And so, it's like, okay, okay, we got to figure this out. I'm not getting a straight answer. Things, and sometimes it's just because people don't know. Maybe the listing agent hasn't asked, is not necessarily trying to be evasive, but maybe hasn't asked the questions. A lot of, I know, especially when people buying condos, because a lot of people, their first home is a condominium, right? Just price point, affordability, those kinds of things, right? Lifestyle as well for young professionals, that it's like, hey, I don't want to be mowing grass. I don't have a dog. I want to live a nightlife. I don't want a yard to look after, those kinds of things. So it's amazing how many questions need to be asked when it is a condominium, in terms of different factors of condominium ownership in a particular project, and so those kinds of things. And when answers aren't forthcoming or very straight, then it can be a red flag. Looking at the sale history of the house, which we have access to.
History of the house.
Okay, so this house sells like every year. Like, it seems to sell. Like, why? Why is this house continually selling?
Wow.
Okay, and going into the house, and even something like new basement development. Well, why was the basement just developed? It's a 15-year-old house, right? Well, why was it redeveloped? Well, maybe there was a flood. Maybe there's problems with the house. Those kinds of things, and that sometimes should be disclosed, but aren't necessarily mandatory to disclose, right? Because it's not an active problem, but it could be a factor in a value of the house, appreciation, resellability, those kinds of things. Why are 3 or 4 houses in the same area, like on the same street? Okay, now how come I'm just looking around, there's 3 or 4 houses all for sale here? Why?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a neighbor? Is it a neighborhood? Is it something that's being planned for the neighborhood? Those kinds of things. So it's having to be a bit of a detective as well, for the agent, to make sure that these kinds of questions are answered. Sometimes condominiums, when there's just a continual heavy, more than normal turnover in a condominium, an apartment style, say, condominium complex. What is there something going on with the condo and the condo association and how it's run? Are there building envelope issues? Are there building structural issues? That is there potential what they call cash calls or special assessments coming in because of major problems that need to be addressed? Has the condominium association not been collecting sufficient funds over the years to build up what's called the reserve fund to deal with these kinds of things? Mismanagement, right? Those kinds of things. There's just so many factors that needs to sometimes just do a little bit of discovery. You had mentioned earlier rent to own. We haven't really seen rent to own opportunities here lately because we see them more in markets where the market is down and people are not able to sell. Okay, for some reason their house, the market is just not active enough, and the house sits on the market, and they need, they need to move on for whatever reasons, employment, those kinds of things, and don't want the house, can't afford to have the house sit empty.
Yes.
So rent to own can sometimes be an option there. So when I do see a listing that that is a rent to own option, I say to myself, okay, my first thought to myself is, okay, a hard to sell house. Why? Right?
Wow. Okay. So just because it's a rent to own, don't jump on it, because it might not actually be a good idea. There could be
Right.
something wrong with. Wow. I'm learning so much.
So some of the things are fixable.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Some houses just don't sell because the homeowners didn't clean up after their, pets well for many, many years. And
all it takes is $1,000 and it's
and the house, the house smells like a litter box.
Yeah.
Maybe homeowners smoke in the house, right? Which a lot of people that are even smokers,
yeah,
a lot of them do not want to buy a house where the home, most of the younger generation no longer smokes inside their homes, but there's older generations, and some of these homes have been smoked in for many, many, many years. Yeah. Well, that has permeated absolutely everything, right? So how fixable is that, right? So different factors. So red flags, continually selling, or just, and I would say an overabundance of turnover of property within an area. It makes me wonder, okay, why?
Yeah.
Why is this happening over here? Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from this has been find an agent that will go the extra mile for you. And, Dan, that's something I really appreciate about you from your stories, from just who you are as a person and your team. And as you've developed, you always do go the extra mile. I know so many homeowners and home buyers that have purchased from you, and from you being there from the very beginning, advising them, showing up with a basket at the end just to say thank you for allowing me to be your agent. You go above and beyond. And so I just want to thank you so much for being on the show, taking the time to come and just share valuable information with new home buyers or people that are wanting to get into the real estate game. And so I just really appreciate who you are and your time.
Thank you so much. A lot of people say, yes, I'm a salesperson, but ultimately I consider my role in it more of a customer service than sales. Just looking after our customers and doing what is in their best interest. I've done it for more than 30 years and still love it. Like the day I joined the business. It's been a great run, and have no desire to retire at this point. And I have the joy of being able to work with my family and just building legacy and just being able to serve people. I've just met so many incredible people that I've been able to serve over the years, and so it's been a great joy, and it continues to be a daily joy for me.
I love it. Right before we wrap up, do you have any concluding thoughts or any statements or any things that you would want to leave the viewers with about home buying, or like how would you wrap it up, or any final piece of advice?
Well, like I started out with, I often get people asking me, is this a good time to buy? Well, it's never a wrong time to own. And so it's always a good time to own.
Okay.
And so it comes a point where you do need to jump in. I have always advised, especially young people, buy within your means. Don't become house poor. Don't buy something.
House poor. Can you give us the definition of house poor?
Where people have mortgaged, they've gone as high as they possibly can and can hardly afford to enjoy their life. Just because of bills that they suddenly have to pay. Well, we wanted a house like this because our friends have a house like this, and so buy something that you can afford, where you can also still have a life, so that you can enjoy your home, not just make payments on it and can't enjoy your life, can't go on a vacation, can't enjoy life the way you like. Rather buy a little bit lower and enjoy. Sometimes that means buying a house that needs a little bit of work. A little fix up. You don't want to buy a house where you're just flushing money down the toilet continually, but at the same time, sometimes a little bit of paint and polish, and it's never just paint. It's always a little bit more than that, but
A little bit of elbow grease.
exactly. Is also a great way to build equity and improve the value of a home.
Yeah.
So, and I think with a generation that we serve a lot of, like people that are younger than myself, older generations, many people, they bought one house and that's where they lived,
there.
right?
Yeah.
And I know my wife and myself, we've lived in lots and lots of houses. It has slowed down over the years somewhat, but it's a lot of people move 3 to 4 years, 5 years, just as their needs change, right? Start out with maybe a small condo. Life changes. They get married, then they have children. Oh, need a house. It's that and the other. Well, then there's the downsizing part when the kids leave home.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So I, for the most part, don't advise people look at something necessarily that you're going to be here for the next 50 years, because the reality is you likely won't.
Yes.
Right? Does this work for you now? Can you afford this now? Right? And being able to work with an agent that will listen to you, not want to sell them what they want to sell you, but sell you that they'll find the correct house for you. I have sold lots and lots and lots of houses over the years that I would have no desire to live in whatsoever. But it's not about me. It's about, is this the correct house? Is this the best deal? Is this a great house for my clients? Yeah. So finding that agent that will work for you, will listen to you, and then serve you in the best possible way with a professional standard, and then enjoy the process.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it. Find an agent that's willing to go above and beyond for you, someone that really cares, understands the process. Look out for all the red flags that Dan explained when coming to the actual property itself, to the future property in that community, and not only that, but also to the entire buying process. So Dan, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show. And come back for the next episode.